They will never know why our money is called the dollar.
The dollar, sir?
Yeah, and if you think I'm worthy, put my portrait on the front of it.
Have you ever looked at your dollar bill and wondered where the portrait of George Washington came from? Today, I'd like to introduce you to the captivating story behind one of the most iconic images of George Washington, the Athenaeum portrait painted by Gilbert Stuart. After his death, Washington became a revered public figure, and Stuart's portrait served as the model for countless replicas, eventually eclipsing all other representations of him. Art critic John Neal even remarked that if a better likeness were presented, people would still choose Stuart's image, as it had become synonymous with Washington himself. Interestingly, Stuart referred to this masterpiece somewhat irreverently as his $100 bill. That's the fee he charged for copies. Today, over 60 of these copies exist, but there's more to the story. Originally from Rhode Island, Stuart moved to Scotland as a teenager to pursue his artistic dreams. He found success in London and Dublin, but his true ambition was to capture the likeness of Washington. Stuart's return to America was driven not only, though, by his artistic ambition, but also by his financial troubles. He faced the threat of debtor's prison, and to a friend he said, "When I can net a sum sufficient to take me to America, I shall be off to my native soil. There I expect to make a fortune of portraits of Washington alone. I calculate upon making a plurality of his portraits, whole lengths, what will enable me to realize, and if I should be fortunate, I will repay my English and Irish creditors. To Ireland and England I bid adieu." Unfortunately, Stuart continued to incur a plethora of debts, even back in America. When Stuart returned to America, he set himself up as a portrait painter to stars like Thomas Jefferson and John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. He settled in Pennsylvania, where the most important people in the United States lived. Eventually, he got George Washington to sit for a portrait, and Martha was so impressed by it that she commissioned Stuart to paint portraits of both her and her husband. The sittings were challenging. Washington disliked posing and struggled with discomfort from his new false teeth. His mouth was swollen and sore. Once Martha saw the unfinished portrait, she was displeased because of the swollen and discolored mouth. Another problem was that Stuart loved to talk to his sitters, but as he talked to the sullen Washington, he found that Washington only came alive when the conversation shifted to horses and farming. Despite being the most recognized portrait of Washington, perhaps even the most famous portrait in American history, the Athenaeum portrait was never completed. It features only Washington's head and shoulders against an unfinished background. Some speculate that Stuart kept it unfinished as a means to retain it for his own use, enabling him to produce various replicas that became a major source of income. Apparently, even after the swollen mouth, after Washington's death, Martha asked Stuart for it several times, but he refused to give it to her because it was not finished. However, the portrait's incomplete nature may have contributed to its legendary status. Art historian Richard Lanitham praised Stuart's choice to focus solely on Washington's head, which amplifies the image's power and intensity. The exact number of replicas Stuart created remains uncertain, with estimates ranging from over 72 to over 100. Each copy further cemented Washington's status in American society, where he quickly became a demigod figure after his passing. Eulogies elevated him to divine status, and with many viewing him as a guiding force for the nation's independence and happiness. If you look at your dollar bill, you will notice that the portrait of Washington is an exact reverse copy of the Athenaeum portrait, and Washington's jaw is significantly less swollen. I am sure both Martha and George would be pleased with that. Must portraits be beautiful? Check out this other video on whether or not art must be beautiful.